The Forum at 8 on SAFM.
Is it possible to find a long-term sustainable solution in the mining industry? Mike, if I can start with you.
Absolutely. I think everybody would agree that we have no lack of solutions out there. What we have is a lack of commitment on the parties, and that's all parties, to put their shoulder to the wheel and implement the solutions that are in many respects so obvious to see. So the simple answer is absolutely. In the case of Mining South Africa, the solutions are pretty much all within our hands. We need to grasp it and we need to work together to implement them.
I also want to ask if any of the solutions we are discussing are unworkable. Any of the solutions just aren't the ones that we shouldn't have, that we should have on the table. Daniel, I want to ask you this question first. Is it possible to find a long-term sustainable solution, in your opinion?
I think based on the just geopolitics of the entire situation, I think that they have to find a solution. South Africa sits on, at least in the platinum mining industry, over 80% of the world's platinum resources, and platinum has become a very valuable resource for many different facets of industry, and therefore, in order to continue these facets of industry, they need to find a solution, and that solution needs to happen in South Africa.
Are any of the solutions we're discussing unworkable, things that we should throw out the window?
I believe that any solutions that come to the table have to be agreed on by all parties. It has to be fair for the government, the mining industry. It has to be economically profitable, and the workers, of course, need to be taken care of. As long as those parties are addressed, then I think that right now there's no solution that could be thrown out unless it doesn't address those three parties.
So this is our Forum at 8 today. We're asking you, how can we save our mining industry? We already received a tweet from Kusatu today. They say, the mineral wealth beneath the earth must be in the hands of the majority, the land benefiting all who live on it. Mike, what do you think are the solutions? And I know we're going to discuss them in more detail, but are any of the solutions unworkable in your opinion?
No, I don't think they're unworkable. It's an interpretation of the solutions that are on the table, because what is happening is that people put pretty simple and clear workable solutions on the table. And when the parties then start implementing them, they go in different directions because of the interpretation of what the solution is trying to do. I think we need to get back to simplicity, where we start and talk to each other rather than just talking past one another and trying to get the next argument on the table. I don't think that the parties, and I include all the parties, are actually honestly talking directly to each other with the intention of getting those solutions implemented. There's still too much gaming going on.
Kuseni Dlamini is in our Pretoria studios as well. We introduced him a little bit earlier on. Kuseni, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed, Dashan. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Do you think we can find solutions? I just want to establish that we all agree that there are solutions that can be found, and whether it's possible to find sustainable long-term ones, not things that just solve the problems ahead of the wage demands that we're expecting in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think the focus should be on long-term sustainable solutions. And I strongly believe, Dashan, that we can indeed find those solutions and that we must indeed find them. And we need to go back to basics and really get the industry, labor, as well as government to really sing from the same hymn book in terms of talking about the industry, in terms of driving production issues and also managing labor relations in the industry in a progressive and productive way.
Should we first start by talking about what is our attitude to mining? If we're going to look for solutions to it, what's the attitude from government and what's the attitude of workers?
I think the industry is still seen as a strategic industry, as indeed it is. That's notwithstanding the fact that its contribution to the economy has declined over the years. It now accounts for about 5%. But in terms of employment, it's still a very important player, employing about 500,000 people. And if you consider the fact that one employee may have 10 dependents, so you've got lots of people dependent on it, and there are also suppliers who depend on supplying the industry. It's systemically very, very important indeed, but its importance and role and contribution to the economy may be undermined if we allow it to decline. We dare not do that.
Is it going to be a source of job creation into the future? Daniel, I'd like to ask you that question. It's been a source of employment in South Africa. It has been a major contributor to our GDP, but is it going to be that way in the future?
I think right now the solution needs to focus more on maintaining the status quo. South Africa can't afford to let the mining industry crumble with the high unemployment rate that is already present there. Even further crippled mining industry will completely toss the economy over the edge as far as unemployment is concerned. So I think that it has to at least maintain the status quo for now, and then improvements can be talked about down the road.
If government does view that this is a source of job creation, who really is growing up in South Africa that wants to be a miner, who wants to work in what is being reported as hostile conditions, robbing you of your family life, working in the very deep bowels of this earth? Mike, is it something that you think we can depend on to solve our job creation, our unemployment woes in the country?
Absolutely. Just to pick up on a comment by Kuseni around the reducing contribution of mining to South Africa, it's true in GDP terms, but actually he did make the point, and I agree with that fully, that we've got to look at mining in the round in South Africa. South Africa is 100% dependent on mining and its minerals to grow its economy and indeed transform its economy and jobs. It is a fact that most of the tertiary and secondary sectors in South Africa exist to a large degree and in some cases totally because of the existence of mining. So whilst mining in and of itself directly contribution is small, it is significant in South Africa. And to Daniel's point about maintaining the status quo, I fully agree with that, because at the moment we are seeing a decline in mining which we cannot afford. That's only going to have the direct impact of a reduction or a further increase in our negative balance of payments. We can't afford that. Because we're trying to grow our infrastructure, we're trying to grow our economy. We need money to do that, and we need the revenue to basically start transforming our economy. So mining is crucially important, and I think we really need to understand its role as the dynamo of the economy in South Africa.
You say it's crucially important, but when we look at the situation right now, commodity prices are down since the crash of 2008. The rand remains volatile. We know that the platinum levels are no longer at $2,000 an ounce. They're well below that. Gold as well. Some experts are saying that the price of gold is going to reach around $1,000 an ounce. Is it still profitable to be in mining when we start looking at the challenges?
Yeah, I think we've got to look at mining in the long term. Mines are not built for next year or the year thereafter. It's a long-term investment. Mining has been through these ebbs and flows before and will so into the future. And there will be a time when mining booms again. And South Africa cannot afford to be not ready when the boom comes. And the boom will come for sure. So yes, the times are tough at the moment, as they are for everybody in the mining industry worldwide. So we shouldn't kid ourselves that South Africa is unique in that regard. Where we really are not doing ourselves a favor is preparing for the boom time. In other words, to try and get our costs under control and to get our people relationships up to where they should be.
Hassan Logat, you're on the line. Hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning. It has to take an American guy, an American-based person, to raise the issues about deaths on the mines, the external costs, which these guys here just simply don't talk about. One of the things I've been lamenting on this program and other radio stations is the voice of organized communities and disorganized communities are never very seldom are they heard on these programs. And the communities have received a lot of promises from the mines when mining starts, and they say to these communities, we'll employ people from your neck of the wood. Very seldom are they employed. Mining does not take place on the moon. It takes place in the community, where HIV takes place, where shacks are surrounding these mines, and we don't discuss this. When the mining charters, or whatever the new agreement is, they leave out communities. Communities have had their own protests against Lonmin in 2011, and the organization I'm associated with, the Benchmarks Foundation, have done sterling work with others, IANRA and such groups, and they often ignored in this discussion, to our peril. I'm warning that, really.
Hassan Logat, thank you very much for calling in. Bruce is holding on in Randburg. Hi, Bruce, you've got a solution for us.
Morning, guys. Look, I'm going to make a point that may seem a little bit controversial and insensitive, but the real question here is, if the profitability and the productivity of the mines is less than the expenses, you have to restructure. By restructuring, I mean retrenchment. I know there's external factors. We understand the global market, commodity prices are down. The problem with retrenching is that the trade unions are completely intransigent around this point. They refuse to budge. So my point is really a simple one. I'd like your guest to maybe answer. How does any large company that's running at a loss address this without making retrenchments. I know you can make some cosmetic changes. You can reduce the big bonuses that people claim on directors. But end of the day, without mechanizing and making retrenchments, how would you fix basic profit and loss? Thank you.
Jonathan's been holding on for some time. Hi, Jonathan in Cape Town.
Morning to you guys. I have a fairly topical quote. It's from a book written by Alan Paton called Cry of the Beloved Country. It was first published in 1948. And on page 159 it says, "What is it worth, this mining industry, if it cannot support the poor?" It carries on to say, they say that higher wages will close the mines down. So then what is it worth as industry? And must we be kept poor so that others can be kept rich? Now, my point is that never in the history of Africa has the benefits of mining trickled down to the poor people in any country. And that's in 1948. And my suggestion is that those same words can be applied to last year's tragedy at Marikana. Nothing has changed. And I really believe that it is time that Africans stood up against the rape of Africa and her resources by foreign-owned companies.
Mike, you were in the industry for some 30 years in mining. You were an engineer as well as in managerial roles. Do you think this would be an appealing idea to companies? Say, well, let's make reduced profits?
I think this discussion, quite frankly, is looking at the issue from a so-called empty glass perspective. Let's get the facts straight. Comments have been made that enormous amounts of cash leave the country. That's not true. And if you want the facts, I'm very happy to give you the details. But the fact is the bulk of the revenue stays in the country, whether it is in the procurement of services, whether it is in the basically employment of people, whether it's paying taxes, whatever. So let's get the facts straight. The largest lion's share of revenues from mining stay in the country and always have. Secondly, comments have been made that the people have never benefited from mining. And I don't want to comment on what the situation was in 1948 because I wasn't there. But I can tell you this much. I've grown up in mining towns around this country, from KwaZulu-Natal, the Free State, and in the Gauteng area. And I can tell you this much, that a significant upliftment of the people in South Africa have benefited from mining. Let's just consider, Johannesburg would not be here without mining. Richards Bay would not be here without mining. Neither would Rustenburg. And all these towns, yes, there is poverty. Yes, there are things that have to be addressed, but that doesn't mean that mining doesn't benefit them. So one of the things I would suggest we have to do for a sustainable solution is let's get the facts on the table, guys, and then we can debate the facts rather than these antiquated perceptions.
The Forum at 8 on SAFM.